I've got fat rolls to show ya. I've got fat rolls for you. Gonna put some fat rolls in motion. Get ready, cause we're eating through. Hey now. Hear what I say now. Big fat pigs are just on the corner. Hey now. Hear what I say now. We'll get freaking fat for you. The big fat pigs are jumping. And everybody's hanging out. I've got fat rolls to show ya. I got humongous hooters for you. Gonna put my hooters in motion. Get ready, cause we're gonna get it turned to a big fat pig. Hey now, hear what I say now. Big fat pigs are just around the corner. Hey now, hear what I say now. We get freaking fat for you. Hey guys, so today we are gonna do a little bit of, I don't wanna say studying, but we kind of are. So all we're doing is that we're going to check out what is cognitive dissonance and what does cognitive dissonance have to do with gang stalking. So what is cognitive dissonance and why is it important? Honestly, I myself do not understand much about it. I have a vague idea about what it is. So we're going to delve into the topic of what is cognition. We're going to delve into the topic of what is cognitive dissonance and how does it apply to gang stalking in any way, shape, or form. Okay. And we're going to start by doing a simple, not YouTube search. Let's start with Google. Let's start with this. This should be fun, okay? And let's do this. Hang on. So we're right here and we're gonna get started. So what's cognitive dissonance? So what is cognition? I feel like that is a really good starting point. And cognition, let's see. What is this? Oh no. Okay, so let's get started. So what is cognition? Cognition is the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding. You know, I need to put on my shorts. Hang on. I'm going to put my shorts on because it's freaking... I'm not going to put it right here in front of you. Don't worry. I'm not going to flash you my huge giant maxi pad, alright? So, hang on. Okay, so let's go. Hang on a second. Today I was wearing like these like super badass red jeans. So like Jibbai Guess has the coolest clothes. Oh, okay, here we go. I'm good. And let's go. I've got a fat roast to show ya. I got giant milkers for you. Gonna put some fat rolls in motion. Hey, get ready, cause we're in it. Okay, so what is cognition? Let's start with that. The mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. Okay, so this is interesting. A perception, a sensation, idea, or intuition resulting from the process of cognition. This is interesting. Now let's check out a YouTube video about what is a closer dive into cognition. So this should be interesting. Let's see, what not cognitive behavior therapy? Okay, I feel like that is gonna be interesting too. What is cognition? Oh my god, look. I guess it's a word that is not really being searched about because my stream is coming out on cognition. Cognition, okay, here we go. This is gonna be interesting. Let's check this
I
out.
canceled my Mid-Journey subscription.
This should be fun.
Why do smart people make dumb decisions? Why do conspiracy theorists think that we didn't land on the moon or that Hillary Clinton is a space alien? And why won't Bernice admit that the new Superman movie just isn't very good? We've talked about cognition before. We usually refer to it as the process that we use to think and solve crossword puzzles and stuff, but really, cognition involves knowing, remembering, understanding, communicating, and to a certain extent, learning. And as truly wonderful as our
Okay, so knowing, remembering, understanding, communicating, and learning. Okay, that's interesting.
brains are, we can be spectacularly bad at all of these things. We used to think that our cognition worked like a computer, logically processing information. But that cabbage-sized chunk of pink, wet brain matter in your skull can do a lot more than math, and the things that it does are certainly not always logical. Many experts argue that it's cognition that makes us truly human, and that everything that comes with it, our preferences, prejudices, fears, and intuitions, are what make us the individuals that we are. We're not the only animals that show some evidence of cognition, of course. Chimps and gorillas exhibit insight and planning, crows use tools, elephants teach each other. But our capacity as humans to figure stuff out is matched only by our ability to totally misjudge stuff. As prone as we are to brilliance and insight, we are equally likely to succumb to irrational thinking and false intuition.
Okay, so this is interesting. So just as we can be rational, we can even fall into false intuition. So that's really good. And yeah, definitely we can.
So to borrow a riff from René Descartes, you think, therefore you are. Which means you are brilliant a lot of the time. And sometimes you just kind of look stupid.
Cognition.
We all want to make sense of the world, and one of the major ways our cognition allows us to do that is by forming concepts, mental groupings of similar objects, people, ideas, or events.
Okay, so concept. Concept is a mental grouping of similar objects, people, ideas, or events.
We like to lump things together. Concepts simplify our thinking in such a fundamental way that we usually don't have to stop and think about using them. They're just there. And yet, without concepts, we'd need a unique name for everything. You couldn't just ask me to shake the anglerfish because there'd be no concept of shake or fish, let alone stuffed blue anglerfish. And if I told you that I was devastated that I lost my anglerfish, which I probably would be, I'd also have to explain my emotions, their intensities, even the words themselves that I had to use. So basically, without concepts, no one would ever get anything done. We'd all be...
I wonder if the word cognition has to do with concepts. Like, I wonder if one word is coming off the other. You know what I mean? Like, if it's cognition, like cognition and concepts, I wonder if they are almost like in a hierarchical type of organization.
Like a bunch of ants taking all morning to say, hey, what's up? We often organize our concepts by forming prototypes, mental images, or pinnacle examples of a certain thing. For example, if I say bird, the general shape of a songbird probably pops into your head before like a penguin or a chicken or an emu, because robins and cardinals more closely resemble our bird prototype. Still, if I show you a picture of some crazy creature you've never seen before, and you note that it has feathers and a beak, you probably file it under the bird category, because it more closely resembles your concept of bird than your concept of rodent or overcoat or footstool. Concepts and prototypes speed up our thinking, but they also can box our thinking in and lead to prejudice if we see something that doesn't fit our prototypes. 100 years...
Like, this is gonna sound awful, but I'm gonna say it, okay? I'm not gonna say it. No.
Years ago, the sight of a female doctor might have caused some heads to explode because in people's tiny minds, the prototypes of doctor and women didn't have any overlap. And actually, some people today still feel that way. Haters gonna hate. So it's important to like actively keep your mind open to make room for evolving concepts, and remember that concepts may sometimes hurt as much as they help. One of the biggest ways our cognition works to our benefit, though, is through our ability to solve problems. We use our problem-solving skills all the time. How to assemble Scandinavian furniture, bake muffins with a missing ingredient, or handle the crushing disappointment of the new Superman movie. And we approach problem-solving in different ways. Sometimes we value speed, other times accuracy. Some problems we figure out using trial and error. You know, you try something and if it doesn't work, you try it a different way and you keep at it until something works. Trial and error is slow and deliberate, which may be good or bad depending on the problem. You can also use algorithms and heuristics to come up with some solutions.
I don't know what's a heuristic. What the hell is a heuristic? Let's see. Heuristic. Enabling someone to discover or learn something for themselves. Could be proceeding to a solution by trial and error or by rules that are only loosely defined. Okay, that's interesting.
Logical, methodical, step-by-step procedures that guarantee an eventual solution, though they may be slow to work through. Heuristics, on the other hand, are more like mental shortcuts, simple strategies that allow us to solve problems faster, although they're more error-prone than algorithms. Okay. Say you're at a grocery store looking for a family-sized bottle of sriracha. You could use an algorithm and methodically check every shelf and aisle in the store, or you could use heuristics and first search the Asian or condiment sections, the places that make the most sense based on what you already know. Heuristics may be way faster, but the algorithmic approach guarantees you won't overlook the sauce along the way because they stuck it in the deli or whatever dumb thing they did this week. So algorithms, heuristics, and trial and error are problem-solving strategies that involve a plan of attack. But sometimes we get lucky while puzzling out a problem and out of nowhere, sudden flash of insight that solves the problem. I'll use orange in the muffin recipe instead of lemon, or sriracha lives in the Mexican section. For some reason, neuroscientists have actually watched that kind of sudden happy brain flash on neuroimaging screens. In one experiment, they gave subjects a problem to solve. What word can be added to the three words crab, pine, and sauce to create a new compound word? Then they asked the subjects to press a button when they had the answer. While the subjects thought about it, scans showed activity in their frontal lobes, the areas involved in the focused attention of typical problem solving. But right at that aha moment, just as they pushed the button, there was a clear burst of activity just above the ear in the right temporal lobe, which, among many other things, is involved with recognition. The answer, by the way, we already gave you the hint earlier in the episode. Where's my fish? Those sudden bursts of insight are awesome, but you can't always count on them to solve all your problems. And just because something feels right doesn't mean it's truly correct, because as inventive and smarty pants as we may be, our cognition often leads us astray in all kinds of ways. For instance, we often look for and favor evidence that verifies our ideas, while we're more likely to avoid or ignore contradictory evidence, a tendency known as confirmation bias. This is really similar to the overconfidence we've talked about when you're basically more confident than you are correct. When this kind of cognitive bias takes hold, you might cling to your initial conceptions in a kind of belief perseverance, even in the face of clear proof to the contrary. This happens all the time, and it can be maddening for people watching it happen.
That's not
people
everyone.
still think that the Earth is flat.
Like, not everyone is like that, though. Not everyone is like that. There's people that are simply stubborn because they want to be right even though they know that they're wrong. Like, even though when there's evidence about them being wrong, they're trying to trick you into you. How do you say? People will try to attach to a truth with the expectation that you might believe it even though they know it's a lie. Like, I'm not sure if that makes sense. Well, I guess that would be called cognitive dissonance. I guess this is cognition. So we're going to continue this and then we're going to check out what cognitive dissonance is.
It's like, what? How? There's space pictures. Probably don't need to tell you, people can get really weird and defensive when they evade facts and choose to see only the information that confirms their beliefs. They may even become functionally fixed, unable to view a problem from a new perspective. Instead, they just keep approaching a situation with the same mental set, especially if it's worked in the past. So you got a nail sticking out from a board, and you're like, I need to take care of that. There's rocks and bricks all around you, but because of your functional fixedness on the idea that only hammers work on nails, you don't even consider hitting it with the brick, and instead you waste a bunch of time looking for the hammer in your garage, and you're angry and frustrated, and there's still a nail sticking up from the board. So our mental set predisposes how we think, just as you'll remember that our perceptual set predisposes how we perceive. This is what makes heuristics, those super convenient mental shortcuts that we all use so easily.
What's a perceptual set? That's interesting. I don't know what a perceptual set is. A perceptual set is a predisposition to perceive things in a certain way, influenced by factors like past experiences, expectations, and motivations. It's a cognitive bias, that affects how we interpret sensory information, leading us to notice some aspects of a situation while ignoring others. Essentially, our brains use past knowledge and current context to make educated guesses about what we are experiencing, which can sometimes lead to errors in perception. So this is interesting because a perceptual set, like that's actually what gang stalking does, is that because you have had a bunch of people creating experiences doing this is a sign of gang stalking. That what happens is that you become predisposed to believe that this is a sign that someone is gang stalking you. And so the actual act of gang stalking is when they are creating the factors such as the past experiences, which will lead you to have an expectation. And the motivation is pretty much what motivates you to believe that is the past experiences. So it is literally gang stalking literally produces a new perception. It makes you predisposed to perceive things in a certain way. So gang stalking literally messes up your cognition of your reality. That's just how it is. That's exactly what it is. It's a cognitive bias. Like you start believing that like the gang stalking grin is a gang stalking grin instead of a grin that has nothing to do with gang stalking. So next thing you start interpreting like weird smiles as something like to have to do with gang stalking, which is insane. But I mean, in my experience, like those smiles are freaking weird because they just look evil. So I will interpret that as having to do with gang stalking because I am predisposed to have that perception because of the previous experiences. This makes total sense.
Fallible. In the 1970s, cognitive psychologists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman researched how we make snap judgments and discovered one way smart people make dumb decisions. They found that people believe an event will be more likely to occur if they can conjure up examples or memories of it, especially if those examples are particularly vivid, scary, or awesome. So say you're in a casino and you win $2 at a slot machine. Suddenly, every flashing light and ringing bell in the place goes off, but when you lose, which is the vast majority of the time, it's just crickets. With all their lights and noise making, the casino makes sure that wins are super vivid and memorable, while losses just go away unacknowledged. That way, the next time you're standing there with $100 in your pocket, you're more likely to overestimate your chances of winning because the memories of winning are more striking. The more mentally available those memories are, the more it seems that it's going to happen.
So same thing, it's the same thing with gang stalking, is that you experience gang stalking so much that the most mentally available memories and biases are gang stalking related. Like you literally have a bunch of bad experiences substantially more available than the experiences of you being happy. That is actually exactly what happens with gang stalking, is that you literally are bombarded with a bunch of experiences that are so striking and so powerful that they become significantly more mentally available than normal memories of you being at the beach or whatever. It's insane. Like literally, the memories of gang stalking become significantly more available. Breeze, so okay. So what do we have here? Hey Bree, what up, homegirl? I hope you're doing good. I'm sorry to hear about that. Like you had like a heavy relapse, or like a pot relapse. I'm so sorry, regardless of what it is, though.
Again, this is known as the availability heuristic, and it can warp our judgments of people too. If we
so this is the availability heuristic. This is interesting.
Chances of winning because the memories of winning are more striking. The more mentally available those memories are, the more it seems that it's going to happen again. This is known as the availability heuristic, and it can warp our judgments of people too. If we keep remembering news footage that shows people of a given group shooting guns, that can shape our impression of the entire group, even if what we saw was only a tiny minority within that group. Essentially, we're great at fearing the wrong things. We worry about being killed in a plane crash or getting bitten in half by a shark or accidentally choking on a dumpling. Thanks to our brain's B-roll of horrific images, we come to fear what's actually very...
Oh, not heavy. Oh, thank God.
rare instead of worrying about much more common but less even if what we saw was only a tiny minority within that group. Essentially, we're great at fearing the wrong things. We worry about being killed in a plane crash or getting bitten in half by a shark or accidentally choking on a dumpling. Thanks to our brain's B-roll of horrific images, we come to fear what's actually very rare instead of worrying about much more common but less memorable ends like car accidents, cancer, and heart failure. Our thinking can also be swayed by framing or how an issue is presented. Imagine you're considering climbing Everest or getting a nose job or eating a bowl of raw blowfish.
What the hell is that?
Our thinking can also be swayed by framing or how an issue is presented. Imagine you're
You know what, Brie? I'm super paranoid of the word relapse. I'm paranoid as hell, to be honest with you. Like, I literally have paranoia when I hear that word.
Our thinking can also be swayed by
So framing, how an issue is supposed to present, framing can significantly affect the decisions of. Also, how a problem is presented.
Framing or how an issue is presented. Imagine you're considering climbing Everest or getting a nose job or eating a bowl of raw blowfish. I can frame the risks in different ways. Telling you that you've got a 95% chance of survival sounds a lot different than saying 5 out of 100 people die doing this activity, though the information is the same. Our cognitive minds are capable of incredible intellectual feats and tremendous failures. We can solve problems better than any organism on the planet, but given the chance, we can also mess up a pretty simple judgment every day of the week. But if we're mindful of our capacity for error, and if we honor our ingenuity and intellect, I think our ability to solve any problem is nearly infinite, and that gives me a lot of hope. Seriously. So where is my fish? Today, you learned how we use concepts, prototypes, and our mental sets to think and communicate, and how algorithms, heuristics, and insight help us solve problems. You also learned about how fixation, the availability heuristic, fear, overconfidence, and belief perseverance can get in the way of good decision-making and thinking. Thank you for watching, especially to our subbable subscribers who make this whole channel possible. If you'd like to sponsor an episode of
Okay, so now we're gonna check out what is cognitive dissonance.
Hitting your goals has nothing to do with discipline. The real culprit is
This is the same guy.
Chances are good that you've heard of something called cognitive dissonance. It's a term that's starting to get thrown around a lot these days. But you might not know that it has a really deep root in classic social psychology. In 1957, Leon Festinger wrote a book on the theory of cognitive dissonance and outlined a really detailed understanding of what cognitive dissonance is and how people deal with it. Let's start out by talking about what cognitive dissonance is. How would we define it? At the very basics, cognitive dissonance is about...
So, you'll be fine, just stay... Just stay away from people that smell that shizzle. swizzle, shizzle, and don't have that stuff.
Inconsistency. When we hold two thoughts that are inconsistent with one another, basically, that's dissonance. So let's take the example of someone who smokes cigarettes.
That's literally what's
Here's
pushed
the person
on target individual is a lot of cognitive dissonance. Because a lot of people do this when they actually intended to tell you that they're a gang stalker, but it's also like, hi. You know, so it's like one thing means two things. You know what I mean? So you're literally bombarded with cognitive dissonance when you're getting targeted. So like, for example, the cognitive dissonance of the headlights, because headlights are simply headlights, but then you get a bunch of people harassing you with headlights purposely. So then every time you see a headlight, the headlight can mean two things. It can mean that you're either that person with the headlights on is targeting you and harassing you, or it could just mean that they just have the headlights on, which is insane. So that's cognitive dissonance. Gang stalking is a bombardment of cognitive dissonance to a single individual, like a lot of cognitive dissonance. And that actually gets to the point where you simply stop believing you don't understand your reality. You literally become it literally becomes impossible for you to have the correct interpretation of your reality.
I have two distinct thoughts. One of which is, I regularly smoke cigarettes. The other of which is the knowledge that smoking cigarettes is unhealthy. Here are two thoughts that a person can be having at the same time, acknowledging both of these things as fact, but they would seem inconsistent with one another. If you know that smoking is bad, then logically you probably wouldn't be engaging in that activity yourself. And so this is a case of dissonance because there's inconsistency in your own thoughts.
The inconsistency isn't the action, because you know that they're bad, however you're still taking the action. You're still making a decision to smoke even though it's bad for your body, which is insane to me. It's super insane.
So what do people do when they experience cognitive dissonance? Well, there are a few ways in which Festinger said that you could resolve the inconsistency as a way of resolving the dissonance. First, you can change one of those thoughts. So in the case of the smoker who realizes that smoking is bad and also that he is a regular smoker, he might change one of those beliefs and go, smoking's not that bad. It's actually not unhealthy to smoke. That would be changing one of your cognitions, one of your thoughts, as a way of restoring consistency. Another thing you could do is change your behavior as a way to restore consistency. So in this case, the smoker might say, well, if I acknowledge that smoking is bad, then the way I can be consistent is to stop smoking. So changing one of the behaviors that's related to the inconsistency. Another thing people can do is to add new thoughts into the mix. Thoughts that help rationalize the inconsistency. So someone might say, yes, smoking is bad. Yes, I smoke regularly. But also, I do a lot of other healthy behaviors. I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, and I exercise a lot. So I'm adding new thoughts as a way to reduce the problem of inconsistency. And finally, people can just trivialize the inconsistency completely. They can just say, you know what? Sure, smoking's bad, and I smoke, but I just don't care. And that's going to be it. That's not really as big of a deal as people say that it is. That would be another way of resolving dissonance.
Man, that's tobacco.
But why do people feel like they need to resolve anything at all? What's the big deal about dissonance? Well, some people say that dissonance just gets in the way of finding some sense of truth. In general, if we want to understand the world, then we want a clear, consistent picture of it. And anything that makes us feel inconsistency is something that's a problem, and we're motivated to restore consistency again. But most of the research in dissonance has looked at something a little bit different. And that idea is that
it appears to me that it's more like consistent or in between your actions and what you know. Like I guess it's okay to have like a couple of, well, not okay, but having, how do you say, what you do has to be a clear reflection of what you think. Of how you feel about yourself. So to be honest, I see, even though I currently smoke cigarettes every day, I don't want to. I don't want to. Like, they're there, and I just have this craving for cigarettes, and I simply don't like them, to be honest. I just go there. They're just freaking always in the house. Oh, and I do want to stop, but then I'm like, oh, it's not that bad, you know. And it's like, oh, it's gonna help me control my hunger. It's not that bad. But that's like the one thing that I tell myself is like, oh, they're actually gonna help me not be a big fat potato. Because you know when you smoke a cigarette, you're not as hungry and as usually, or like it lowers your hunger. That sounds awful, but actually cigarettes like help you like lose weight. But I'm actually gonna have to stop smoking cigarettes. How I'm gonna do it, I don't know. I have no idea. There's times where I go like 1 to 3 days, but every time I like drive out, it's like, oh, I might as well just buy a couple of cigarettes. It's like $1, you know. So, like, that's one thing that I want to stop doing. I really, really want to stop doing that. I used to smoke a lot more, but still, it's not an excuse.
It's physically uncomfortable to experience cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
There's actually
You're
some
always
negative
like, oh, I don't
physical
want to
tension
smoke,
that
and then
you
I'm there
feel
with a cigarette.
anytime you recognize two
It's
inconsistent thoughts or realize that you've done something through your behavior that contradicts your true attitudes and beliefs. And so lots of studies have shown that this is the case by hooking up different sensors to people or tricking them into thinking that some pill makes them feel uncomfortable when in fact just their inconsistent thoughts is what's doing it. All of this research you can find more about in my blog post on this topic, but suffice it to say that for the most part, when you feel cognitive dissonance, you're feeling actual physical discomfort. You're feeling inner discomfort as well. And anytime we feel bad, we want to feel better. And to feel better, we just find a way to be consistent again. That's the driving force behind cognitive dissonance. It's worth pointing out that there are a couple times when dissonance is especially likely to motivate this action to resolve the inconsistency. One of them is the perception that you had some choice over the inconsistency. So sometimes in cognitive dissonance studies, what they'll have people do is agree to write some essay arguing against their own beliefs. So if you don't believe that your school should raise tuition, if you agree to write an article saying that your school should increase tuition, then that would be a case of dissonance. However, it would only make you feel that dissonance and that motivation to resolve inconsistency if you felt like you had a choice over whether or not you wrote that essay. If you didn't have any choice, if someone literally says, you have to write an essay before we can let you leave, and it has to say tuition increase is good, well, then you didn't have any choice over it, and it's not really that big of a problem. It's when you realize that you did have a choice, and you chose to do the thing that contradicts your own opinions, that you have to then find some comfort within yourself by resolving an inconsistency. In this case, convincing yourself that you actually do like tuition increase. The other thing that has to be there, according to a bunch of research, is the perception of aversive consequences. In other words, you have to think that the inconsistency in your thoughts is going to play out poorly for some reason in the future. So let's say you did write that essay saying
I know it's going to play out
tuition
poorly
increase
for
is
me in the
good.
future.
If you believe that a school administration is going to read that essay and then say, hey, you know, students think this is a good thing to do, there's a negative consequence. There's a negative consequence of your inconsistent actions. Now you're even more motivated to resolve the inconsistency and figure out a way to think that tuition increase actually is a good thing to do. Hopefully this helps clarify what cognitive dissonance is. Now the next time you're at a party and someone throws around the term dissonance, because you go to some pretty crazy parties, you'll now be able to nod your head and actually know what they're talking about. See you next time. For more social psychology, subscribe to this YouTube channel.
I don't think that was. I don't think anyone talks about cognitive dissonance in gangstalking. That's actually really hard. It's like I almost feel like the way that he explained it doesn't actually fit the gangstalking narrative in any way, shape, or form. So I mean, like when you're targeted, you know, I guess. I don't know. Like, you know, I'm typically the person that if I don't feel fine with myself, I really don't like even to like be out and about. But after gang stalking, I kind of lost that type of perception that I had of me, where the only person that I will show to the world was the best version of me. And I, with time, began to be okay with not being the best of myself while meeting new people, you know. And like for me, like before gang stalking, that was unacceptable. And to be honest, I feel like I just simply I forgot that I was like that. You know, I have always been a person like with my own self. I have been a perfectionist, you know, and it's kind of a good thing that that part got lost, because it actually gave me the courage to show the world, you know, what it is like to to have to build yourself back up, you know. And it's like, to me, it's more of a challenge of how fast can I do it, you know, and how can I get there while showing the world that, you know, that I'm literally all messed up. And I'm not proud of it, but I'm not as ashamed as I used to. So my cognitive dissonance in that aspect is that I'm literally well, I guess not. I don't know. I'm tired. I just wanted to do this while you may feel bad about yourself. So let's see, cognitive dissonance. Oh, okay. So this is Jordan Peterson. Okay, so let's listen to him. I love him, and his
and sleep all the way down.
His discourse is a lot of times is significantly better than even the most scientific ones.
You know, I was asked on a show.
Let's check him out.
All of the human phenomena that I've studied in my life or I'm aware of, which is the one that has surprised me the most about human nature. And I paused for a second and I answered the inability of people to change their minds despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Justin Trudeau comes in, he does a disastrous job. What do Canadians do? Re-elect him. That's not enough. Let's do it a third time. Then he steps down. Maybe it's time now to do some autocorrection. What do Canadians do? They re-elect the party that put them in the position that we're in right now. So I think that answer that I gave, it was a British psychiatrist who was hosting me. I think it's that much more apropos today. It is almost impossible to get someone to change their opinions once it is anchored solidly into their personhood. So there you go.
Hey, I've got a biblical reference that will...
Which is why I feel that gang stalkers are always stuck to their same way of living, because they have been manipulators their entire life that they're really not gonna ever change. They're super anchored until their bad and awful deeds.
Clear that up for you.
Okay, shoot.
So, one of the mysteries in the story of Exodus is why it takes the Israelites 3 generations to cross a relatively trivial stretch of desert.
Okay.
So what's the narrative?
I love what he's wearing.
Explanation. So it's twofold. Remember in the account when after Moses encounters the burning bush and gets to the bottom of something and learns, which is what that story...
Part of my immature mind is I just thought burning bush and it just sounds so funny. I know this is in biblical context. I know. But my mind just went there.
Means he goes back to get the Pharaoh to change his mind. But he doubles down, the Pharaoh. And that's the consequence of the ever-accelerating sequence of plagues. And the first 8 plagues destroy the present, and the last plague, which is the death of the firstborn, destroys the future. And it isn't until the present and the future are destroyed, heaven and earth both, plus the future, that the Pharaoh relents. And even then he doesn't, right? Because he sends his army after the Israelites once they do depart. Right now the question is, why do people double down instead of changing? Even in the face of accelerating evidence of error. Okay, so the Israelites leave, right? So now they are escaping their tyranny and their slavedom. And that's a dynamic, right? Because there's no tyrants without willing slaves, and vice versa.
Okay.
And so the Israelites have plenty to learn too. And so the first thing that happens to them is the chaos of the Red Sea, and that's chaos and blood. Why? Because when you change your mind, the first thing that happens is things fall apart. And so, right, and then they cross the Red Sea and they manage that successfully, so that's that chaotic threshold, and then they wander in the goddamn desert for 3 generations. Right, why? Because at least under the tyranny, they knew what to do. And in the wilderness, they are fractious, resentful, immature, and unable to govern themselves. And it takes 3 generations before they recover.
Wow.
So, and you know, I talked to Carl Friston about this, and Carl's a neuroscientist of some repute. And he has an entropy theory of anxiety, which is and I had worked on a parallel theory in my lab in Montreal. We published a paper on it not too long before I departed for parts unknown. Your beliefs are game principles, like game rules, that bring order to complexity. And if you're wrong, you have to modify. And the consequence of modification first is an encounter with unstructured entropy and chaos.
Okay.
And that, the apprehension of that, locks people into their tyranny, self-imposed, familial, cultural, whatever. So it's never from where you are to the promised land. It's always from where you are
chaos.
Through the threshold of chaos into the goddamn desert and then maybe forward.
So in chapter 7 of the Parasitic
That makes total and absolute sense. It's clear as how. It makes total sense.
Mind, where I talk about how to seek truth, I open up the chapter with a long quote by Leon Festinger, the pioneer of theory of cognitive dissonance, and it exactly speaks to your point. So the chaos that you're talking about with the Red Sea and so on in the biblical story is the chaos that you experience internally when you are faced with a dissonant amount of evidence that is contrary to the one that you hold so dear to you. And so it is no accident that this incredible quote by Leon Festinger, I obviously don't have it memorized here, but basically he's saying that there is no ends to which people will go to in order to maintain the coherence of their current belief system, irrespective of the amount of contrary evidence that they are exposed to, because then that triggers cognitive dissonance. And as a matter of fact, paradoxically, what often happens, as I'm sure you know, Jordan, when I expose you to contrary information, it only solidifies your position. So you could imagine how disheartening it is, right? I'm coming at you with a mind vaccine that hopefully gets you to perhaps revisit some of your, cherished beliefs.
You mean
And
like a university professor should?
Like a university professor should. And what it ends up happening is exactly opposite to that. It only emboldens you in your position.
Yeah.
It only solidifies that you were
It's the
right,
pride.
despite the fact that I've shown you that you were perfectly wrong. And so at times it can seem like an insurmountable.
That's really hard for a lot of people because they interpret that as a personal attack. Because changing your belief about that would imply that changing your belief, it would hurt your ego. But the ego of some people is actually what stops them from seeing the truth. And that's why a lot of people don't mature, because accepting that you were wrong means that you were perfect. If the person has some type of narcissistic personality disorder, or if they see themselves as perfect, they're going to actively take your truth, which they know is truth, as an actual offense to them. And then they're gonna grow resentful, which they're not gonna change their belief, even though they know they're wrong, because their pride is not gonna let them. It is a thing about pride. It's a thing of pride, And to be honest, people that are like that are always gonna be stuck in that same mental state.
Struggle, because I'm in the business of defending truth and persuading people of opposing ideas. But in most of the cases, it's la, 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 I don't want to hear it. And that's why I talk about ostrich parasitic syndrome in the previous book.
I don't like people
because
that go,
while
la,
the
la, la,
ostrich
la, la, la.
doesn't...
Those people piss me off so much. Like on my last live stream, I feel like I yelled at someone and I banned them from the channel because like I'm here giving you proof and he was still stuck to his things. So I just don't have patience like for that with people like that. Like it's not like that person was coming to me for help and then I gave him all the evidence and all the answers and they're like, no, they are directed energy weapons and that was just so freaking annoying. Oh my god. So I'm just like, okay, block. You know, this is gonna sound weird, but it's gonna be really crazy, but I love getting upset at people. I don't know. I just feel so good when that's happening. Isn't that weird? And I do not get upset often, but I just freaking love it. It just makes me feel like, I don't know. I feel like kind of ecstatic. It's crazy. I never really knew that before about myself.
Literally bury its head in the sand. The metaphor is very apt, which is I don't want to face reality.
It's willful blindness.
It's willful blindness. And so it's a very, very difficult game.
In the Egyptian mythology, the god of the state, they had a god of the state, Osiris.
Are you ready to stop?
A god of the state. Okay.
And Osiris was a great exploratory and nation-founding hero in his youth, awake and alert and curious, able to transform and to bring order. But as he ages, he becomes ossified, and that's sped along by the fact that he's willfully blind. That's in the Egyptian theology. Now, he has a brother, an evil brother, Seth. And Seth is the origin of the word Satan, by the way, through the Coptic Christians. And Seth is the eternal evil brother of the willfully blind king.
His language is like hard. It's like my vocabulary is not keeping up to.
Is the eternal evil brother of the willfully blind king. And when theology, now he has a brother, an evil brother. I have to
move a little bit back because this is a little hard to understand.
He becomes ossified, and that's sped along by the fact that he's willfully blind.
What's ossified? Do you know what the hell is ossified? Hey Siri. What's ossified? What's ossified? Siri's not answering. Hang on. I wonder how do you even spell that? Let's see, guys. Like, I really have no idea what the hell is ossified. With a Z? Or with 2 double S's? Ossified. Having turned into bone or bony tissue.
Ossified.
That's it. Ossified. Who becomes ossified? The language is tough.
Able to transform and to bring order. But as he ages, he becomes ossified, and that's sped along by the fact that he's willfully blind. That's in the Egyptian theology. Now, he has a brother, an evil brother, Seth. And Seth is the origin of the word Satan, by the way, through the Coptic Christians. And Seth is the eternal evil brother of the willfully blind king. And when Osiris is sufficiently old and sufficiently willfully blind, which means unwilling to understand the usurping motivations of his evil brother, Osiris chops him up into pieces and spreads his parts around Egypt. In fact, the Egyptians regarded each Egyptian province as a piece of Osiris, right? So that body would come together as an integrated state. when he can't kill Osiris because Osiris is a deity. So there's no killing him, but you can make sure
So isn't Osiris is a god, but I'm not sure the god of what. So when I check something, I want to make sure to like understand all the context. So let's do a quick search on Osiris. Osiris is an ancient Egyptian god primarily known for the god of afterlife, associated with the underworld or rebirth. He was also associated with agriculture and vegetation. He was murdered by his brother Set. So Set is the equal to Satan. So Seth, and resurrected by his wife Isis. Isis is Osiris' wife, and became the ruler of the underworld. Okay, I think we're good.
everything falls to pieces. So that's the blindness of institutions once established. They ossify, and then they turn a blind eye to the machinations of the usurper. Right. Okay, so.
Okay, and I'm so I don't know what I haven't listened to like any of this. What the hell is it? Usurp. I know it's like to take place of, take a position of power or importance illegally or by force. Yeah.
Usurp.
Usurp. Yeah, I know it. So take a position of power illegally by force.
Osiris is now scattered all across the landscape. And so things have fallen apart, right? People say that about their own life. Everything fell apart. His wife is queen of the underworld, Isis, and she rules the domain of the underworld and chaos, which is where you go when things fall apart. And she makes her appearance, right? So that's the renewal of the social order by what? The plenitude and terror of nature. And she finds Osiris's phallus, so the vessel of the seminal idea. And she makes herself pregnant and has a son. The son is Horus. Horus is the Egyptian god of the eye, the famous Egyptian eye with the fully open pupil, and he's also a falcon because birds of prey have the most acute vision. And Horus is...
You're such a Horus.
willing to see, and he can see evil. And so he goes back to Egypt when he grows up, like King Arthur. He grows up alienated from his evil community, and he goes back to fight Seth. And they have a terrible battle, and Seth tears out one of his eyes. And they continue to fight, and Horus gets the eye back, and he banishes Seth to the nether regions of the cosmos. No killing him, because the force that usurps and parasitizes never dies. Okay, now he's got his eye back. Now you think he could just slap it in his head and then he could rule. That's not what happens. He goes to the land of the dead, back to the underworld, voluntarily, and he finds Osiris, his father, languishing in the underworld, in a ghostly and This
is tough because I was like, okay, this is cognitive dissonance. And what do we suffer for? And we're getting like a freaking lesson on Egyptian deities. That was completely unaccepted, unexpected.
Intoxicated state, and he gives him his eye.
Okay.
So he provides corrupt tradition with the capacity to see, and then Osiris awakens, and they unite, and it's the union of Osiris and Horus that is the proper sovereign of the state and the soul of the pharaoh.
Nice.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
That's nice. I guess that's why you love to study ancient themes to link them to current realities, right?
Well, it's so brilliant. The Mesopotamians, too, worshipped vision, attention, for exactly the same reason. It's exactly what we're talking about. You talk about people turning a blind eye. There are none so blind as those who will not see. The deity of the revivification of the corrupt state for the Egyptians was literally the open eye. Pay attention, right? And for the Mesopotamians, it was twofold. Pay attention and speak the proper words.
I feel like that was actually really enjoyable, but I'm just more confused now. Like, I feel like that had nothing to do with cognitive dissonance. I feel like it was just my lack of having the proper vocabulary to understand. I don't have any background in Egyptian mythology, so like that's like I'm like lost. I'm like completely lost. What happened, Ephraim? I'm just totally like effed up. Like, I really couldn't. That was not that. What are the comments saying? This is why people don't change. They'd rather suffer than admit that they were wrong. Cognitive dissonance isn't a glitch. It's the ego security system. Yeah, that's exactly what I said earlier. This is totally right. And the only way through it is chaos. Huh? You cross the Red Sea, everything falls apart. And if you don't see it through, you end up worshiping the past pain just to feel stable again. Wow. That's actually a really good comment. Most people will refuse to change until the pain of staying the same is worse than the pain of changing. Wow, that's true. Humility is an unpopular idea of modernity. I wonder if some epidemic of cognitive dissonance is a byproduct of multiple generations which have not been taught how to think critically. We have strayed from classical education principles as the result. There has been several generations of people who follow the latest trends rather than asking questions. I feel like that's always been the case though. But yeah, so in my opinion, a lot of cognitive dissonance is primarily because the person is defending their ego. And the thing is that when you're talking about like a person that has narcissistic personality disorder, they already feel superior to everyone else because they know how to manipulate the minds of people. They know how to slowly and methodically manipulate the minds of people, and it's something that people that are normal and not sociopaths typically do not understand. And I can see why they would have that air of superiority, over superiority, of people that do not have the same type of perception of the world and of people. However, these people they simply do not accept when the evidence is in front of them. And I don't think it's because they don't know that they're actually wrong. I know that they know that they are wrong, and I know that they are evil. However, these people simply just operate out of defending the ego and manipulating people into behaving in the way that they want. So the cognitive dissonance is very different from someone who is manipulative to someone who is manipulative. I feel like there is perceived cognitive dissonance because the person does something and does another, and they feel a certain way. However, they behave like if they actually didn't. So there, I guess there is some that is, I guess, almost like cognitive dissonance. It's dissonance that is not necessarily cognitive. That only appears to be cognitively dissonant. However, it is deceit. JR, nice dude, the way to rock the heart with a tank and open arms love. Hey, how are you? So that's how I feel. I simply feel that you simply just have to know that there's going to be people out there that are going to defend their ego, but they're not defending their ego because they're trying to improve as a human being. They're defending their ego out of pride. And I feel like once you understand that, you really start questioning people. Like, you see people better once you understand the purpose of their actions. So we're gonna check out one more video, and then we're gonna be done. We're gonna be done with this, because let's see. Like today, I'm starving actually. I'm super. So let's see. Cognitive dissonance. Just cognitive. Who else talks about cognitive dissonance? Cognitive dissonance theory. Let's check one more video. So let's see this one. I feel this one is going to be fun.
Reveal how food, exercise,
I do. Let's see some Jordan. Jordan is good. So we're gonna check a little bit about cognitive dissonance, and you want. Is there any particular subject?
Cognitive dissonance is the psychological discomfort that we feel when our mind entertains two contradictory concepts at the same time.
So, do you think that people that are manipulative feel cognitive dissonance? Because these people are saying one thing, and I feel like these people have more cognitive dissonance than anyone else.
For example, I should smoke because I enjoy it. And I shouldn't smoke because it causes cancer.
Earlier. So let's check out a little bit what Peterson has to say. Let's see. That sounds fun. How to take on the woke mob. Well, it was in San Diego. What is too simplistic? I Oh no. Hey, so my computer is gonna start glitching because it's at 1%. Like I literally have to stop. I have to stop the stream right now because my computer is gonna start glitching all hard, and it's gonna be an awful experience for everyone. Just FYI. So guys, this is gonna be. You will, as long as you stay loving. Yay! So we're gonna keep talking tomorrow. We're doing another evening stream, but my PC is literally at 1%, and it starts glitching, especially when I start playing videos. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna continue this tomorrow. And right now, I just wanted to thank you guys for stopping by. Gannon, I think Gannon as in Ganondorf. Thank you so much, for stopping by. You're incredible. I hope you guys have a good evening. Good evening, Bree. Thank you for stopping by. Have an amazing night. Rest. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.